Well, hello there and welcome back. It's Perry here, and today we're going to catch up in the month of February with an update here. And I kind of wanted to get into a little bit more of an explanation as to the redesign of the system and why I came up with the smooth Bommie. So really where that all comes from. Now, first and foremost, I always have stated and always have believed that the design of the tank should really be the design of the sort of the structure of the reef. So if you have a taller tank, you might want to build that reef up a little bit higher and use more of a ledge, maybe a back wall and fade to the front, or islands. And then if you have more of a shallow design like you see here, then it just makes sense to come up with what I have here, which is more of a Bommie. Now, kind of what is a Bommie, really, right? It's more of a patch reef. You know, if you're from Florida and you've ever been out on in the Keys, whether it's out in the Atlantic or even in the Gulf, you come across these like outcroppings, if you will, in the middle of a sand bed, and you see this little patch reef, right? Now, in Australia, they refer to it as a Bommie. And so out there, you might see an Acropora Bommie, you know, out in the middle of just a vast sand bed, like, you know, like you're looking out into a desert, and all of a sudden you just see this little rock structure, if you will, and then just all of these coral heads, you know, literally growing up on it, not necessarily restricted to one species, but really interesting nonetheless. And so the term Bommie is really an Australian term. And I really wanted to emphasize an old friend of mine on the Reef Central Forum from back in 2015 to 2018 era. And, you know, that was a time of you know, a ton of fun, a lot of really cool, very knowledgeable people. And for me to be able to share interests and information and to be considered in the same league and caliber as these guys meant the world to me. And it was just during a time when I thought that it was the height of my Acropora keeping era. So on the SPS forum of Reef Central, you may have remembered a guy that went by the username of Biggles, and he was from Australia, and another guy that was from Australia, like Rodney, he was cool. You had Rangy, that's Dom, always jumping into you know, this Biggles thread, and the thread was called A Splash of Color. And so if you guys are familiar with Corey, he's on Instagram. Corey works for Top Shelf Aquatics and probably one of the aces out there in the industry as far as taxonomy goes. So that's a little shout out to you, Corey. I doubt you're even watching. But he went by C. Iman on R2R as well as Reef Central. And he's just super, super knowledgeable about identification and just origins of corals and everything else. So yeah, real good shout out to him. He was around back in the day. Recently, Saheen just got back in the hobby, and he was a moderator on Reef Central as well as Reef to Reef, and a friend of mine from back in the day as well. And Saheen is extremely knowledgeable, but I think he got out for a minute. But he's back in, and he recently was posting on right here. So I feel honored to see him back around. Honored to have people like Roberto Dendai jump in. Who else? Jackson's Tenuous Richard has stopped by. But yeah, all these guys from back in the day, I mean, like Seafloor and Piper and Reef Mutt, Matt, Connor, you know, those guys. Joe from JBNY, Mark a lot. Old dude, Greg, man, I miss that dude. Ricky Ruse, Ricky got out, unfortunately. Flowinski, that was Flo. Discus Heckle. Matt Mukasey and Martin Phillips. Glaukos, Ryan Ridd, all of these people from back in that time. I probably have missed a bunch of you guys, and thank you if you're here watching. Please leave that in the comments that you remember that time, because man, that was a lot of fun. And Biggles was the guy that was really the one who would have me spit my coffee all over my keyboard. I can't remember how many mouses and keyboards I trashed because I was laughing my ass off so deeply that I couldn't even hold my coffee in when I was reading some of his posts. So we were just having such a hell of a time back then, and the design that he had was sort of a Bommie design. He called it a splash of color. He was such a nut for color and driving color, and he also believed that the white spectrum is really where the colors would show the greatest, and you would actually show the best expressions of those corals in a more full spectrum. And would also say, if it's not under a full spectrum under white lighting, if it's not colorful under that spectrum, then it's not colorful. Meaning, there's really, you've probably seen in my Instagram posts, there's nowhere to hide under full spectrum or white lighting, and it is so true. There really is nowhere. There's no wiggle room, nowhere to hide. If I mentioned one of your name or didn't mention one of your names, I do apologize. But these are all the ones that just really were at the top of my head. And of course, I don't want to not mention, I think I mentioned Roberto for stopping by, but Sonny, you were a major inspiration. I doubt you're watching the channel, but you were, and that's Reef Sight on Instagram, and everybody knows Sonny. You and Christoph Trick are the ones who are behind a lot of my design work, and that goes all the way back to like 2005 and 6. You guys were the ones that I was really looking at and watching, and when I was designing, I was using a lot of your technique. I was also using carbon dosing and bacteria dosing back then as well, and you had a big influence on that, believe it or not. And there was another guy named Robertus. He was from Amsterdam. He was awesome. Leonardo also was a huge influence back in the hobby. So that's pretty much the a walk down memory lane. Bear with me. The update will drag a little bit more today, and just mainly from a sense that I wanted to make sure and give proper love to Biggles, Andrew. I hope you see this. Dom, if you're out there, I hope you make sure you let him know to watch this, and hopefully he gets back in the game. And if you do, let's make another run at this, mate, and let's get everybody having a great time again like we used to. And then we'll choose the forum to go to, because it really stinks that, that photo bucket issue is what caused everybody to kind of scatter, and we've kind of all lost touch, and everybody went to reef right around the same time. So anyway, that's kind of what it is, but I digress. Thanks for guys out there, new people who don't understand that time frame or weren't around during that. It's all good, man. I just want to make sure and give proper love and proper respect to those who I feel were really inspirational in my style and way of reef keeping, and those who I miss chatting with. So much love, you guys. So let's jump into further updates. Now, as far as my reef goes here, the smooth Bommie, now you understand where that comes from. It's really starting to come along. As you can see, I'm tightening it up. So the sand bed is getting a little bit larger around the perimeter. And you can see that as we, sort of walk around the tank, now you can really see that the sand bed is the way it's intended is that we're looking at a centerpiece Bommie, okay? And I wanted the structure to have sand all the way around it, so it really represented a true Bommie. I didn't want it to butt up to the back wall. I wanted to have a gap between the structure with sand, and then of course obviously in the front. And then as you can see, this is where I really get my nerdy reef game on, because this to me is the view that I most enjoy. So I spend time on this side of the couch, which is directly in front of the TV, but I spend my time more in with my head in this direction rather than towards the TV. Not really a big fan of it, but man, am I a big fan of just kind of watching this Bommie and watching the way the fish are beginning to interact around it. Now, as far as we talked about the nutrient levels last time. I have since started the probiotic bacteria from Aquaforest again, and I'm still using Rebiotic. I'm also still using the BioS, which is the nitrifying bacteria from Aquaforest, but not with the same frequency as I use the probiotic every day and the carbon source every day. And last time I think we were talking about nitrates were somewhere around 50. Last test with a week and a half in on this bacteria dosing, I saw a 10-point deduction. I haven't felt compelled to really run a test this week or last week since I saw the lowering. What I did is I just am keeping, I'm just going to keep running the same course. Ultimately, I'm going to set the tripod down here so I can continue to give you an update, so bear with me. All right. There we go. All right, so ultimately, I'm going to use the 48-inch by 24 by 10, that prop tank. Now has transitioned into a mangrove lagoon. I'm probably going to be putting a grass bed out there, Prolifera, Calipara prolifera, which is more of like a seagrass, and that's going to do a really nice job with nitrate management as well. So I will continue to use the bacteria and carbon source until I can transition into more of a full-fledged, refugium, where that's now managing the nutrients. And then from there, I will start to back off of all of that program as I look to move as natural as I can. Now, as a recap, I talked about my products that I use. I'm still using the same stuff as far as trace and everything's concerned. And I'm using ESV still for the big three. And I'm no longer using filter socks. And again, I just don't have really, me personally, I would rather just, I have a shop vac. My sump is super easy to get into. And I just use a shop vac and I just suck whatever's building up down in the sump out. And what that allows is, it just allows for my refugium to truly be connected to the main system. Since they're both connected with one pump and then share that same sump, by having a filter sock in play, I just felt like, as I really thought about it and used, as much logic as I could throughout, I felt like, why would I want to trap all that stuff that could be feeding that refugium? So the idea is I would rather that stuff be in the water column serving as a food to feed the refugium and all the micro inhabitants in there as well. So hopefully the micro life will continue to proliferate and inhabit that space without any predators in there. Then ultimately when their populations get so unmanageable, they'll sort of find their way into this tank. And that's my, really guys, that's ultimately what I'm trying to do here, is just trying to recreate the ocean as closely as I can possibly do it. And then, so, finally, I just want to, I like to keep things realistic as well, because I think a lot of times, people are out there giving these illusions that they don't have problems. I was talking to Matt in NSB Reef yesterday, and we talked about coral boneyards. And, if you've been in the acro game long enough, you know exactly what we're talking about. An acro boneyard is just that. Look, these corals do not, I'm only acropores and I'm mainly just smooth corals, and most of them come from the same place, and still some of them don't want to play nicely, and that is the reality. So I'm just at a point in my hobby where I am grateful for the corals that are in my tank. I'm grateful for how beautiful they're looking, and I'm super stoked just to be able to share with you guys my passion for the hobby. And like I said, as you can see, we're starting to finally, get this reef tightened up and starting to really look like, the vision of what I designed it to be, and, you can see that, that to me is just that's a really pretty look. And yeah, we're gonna finish right there because I don't know that I could really, be more stoked with that. And so again, Biggles, Andrew, man, get back in the hobby. This is totally inspired by you. I appreciate all you guys. You've grown this channel. I never envisioned the channel growing to where it has, and it's all in part due to you. So all of you guys out there that are consistently watching these videos, consistently commenting and giving feedback, and and praise and so forth, I couldn't thank you any more from the bottom of my heart. So be well. Thank you.